Good afternoon, Sean Childs, fantasyanalyst.substack.com, also on Fantasy on SI, doing football and baseball research. And this is the NFBC main event free agency report for, I believe this is week 20, August 3rd. I'm going to take a look at my NFBC main events, try to pick up some players. I've had a bunch of injuries recently, and it's just really, really frustrating. So right now I'm going to bring up my main teams that I have for the main event. Right around the All-Star break, a little before, I kind of positioned myself where I was 90 to 100 points in most of these leagues, and I thought I could make a push. Unfortunately, injuries and lack of saves, I've given up points in those most of those that side of the equation. So, but right now the main event's seventh, fifth, sixth, and fifth. The best two leagues are 92 and a half and 93 and a half. Potentially have a chance to still make a run at cashing in the league title. The other ones, I'd have to look at them right now. I haven't been out of the house, kind of getting back to it. But if you don't hit, you don't make up points, and it's been really, really frustrating to try to replace players that are getting nicked up and not playing, and that's happened over the last couple of weeks, compounded by having 2 or 3 weeks of really limited home runs. So this is the main event I've been looking at most of the time this year. It's the one I had, the CLQ, the one I thought I had the best chance of winning. Dave McDonald, longtime player in the NFBC, has been leading for almost most of the year. He's been kind of up there. He's been kind of in a tight range, 110 to 115 most of the time. And one team is sitting right behind him, and I am sitting in fifth place, and I need to make up about 8 points to cash. If I scroll down to runs, I'm really, really, I need a run just to get 1 point, and I would take a 2 or 3 good weeks to kind of make a push there. So nothing really happening there. I thought I had a lot more home runs on this team. I have Alonso, Olsen, Matt Olson, and Turkelson with Riley Green, 4 pretty good spots for home runs. So even though I'm sitting here at ninth place in home runs, I still think I could potentially gain 4 or 5 points and get to third, but I need to correct the back end of my roster. If I do better in home runs, I will maybe pick up a couple points in RBIs. So based on those, so I might be able to pick up 8 points in offense. I really need to find a base stealer, but it doesn't look like I'm structured well enough to maybe pick up more, maybe 1, maybe 2 points. If I hit on one base stealer, I would really need 2 players to chase a lot of those other people down in steals. And when you're chasing home runs and RBIs, it's kind of a problem. And I really just, in batting average, maybe 1, got some downside there, so nothing really happening. I can make up some ground and strikeouts. I'm only, 23 strikeouts around behind 3 points. Maybe I get a little push up here more with, a few more starters doing well in wins. Tie for second. Saves mid-pack. I think I had a little transition. I'll take a look at that in 1 second because of the trade deadline. First in ERA, kind of shook the guy that the Kashar team that went relievers only, and he drifted back a little bit, and I'm sitting second in whip. So, on the pitching side, I'm pretty competitive, and I can still gain a few more points. But so there is enough for this team to gain maybe 8 or 9 points in offense, 5 or 6, 7 points on the pitching side if I can get some saves. So you just take a look at the lineup first before I move on, and I'll look at last week's start. So Evan Carter on the DL. I had picked up Jung for a week, and he's missed time, but I had Nolan Arenado go on the DL. Canzone is he hasn't really done much, but he helps for batting average, so I can slide him in and get one coverage. I had Bader as an extra person, maybe trying to pick up a steal or two. He got traded to Philadelphia. I'm not 100% sold on what he's going to do. I picked up the Vesia guy from the Dodgers as a third reliever. So I end up having Will Vest and Finnegan on the same team, and that's going to help me. But I do have Randy Rodriguez on the bench. So I think I would probably have 2 decent closers going forward, and I'm going to just have to play whoever's the favorite in for Detroit, and hopefully I can pick up a round or two. I mean, but by having Rodriguez in there, that'll probably be helpful a little bit. But Finnegan kind of backed up. But it's a schoolable Hunter Brown team. Boyd's been really good. Abbott's been good. Boyle should be helpful, and Alcantara's been better. Harrison for the Red Sox really hasn't kind of clicked in the minors. He pitched the other day and he gave up 2 runs, 5 strikeouts over 6 innings, and I think he gave up 10 base runners. And Sheehan is going to get a chance to start here, so I'll most likely go with the extra shot to try to make the strikeouts. May is a player that is potentially that's going to lose time because he's getting closer to innings for the season, and he hasn't pitched that many, and he faces Kansas City. The change to the Red Sox, probably a little worse in his other stats, ERA and WHIP, but not that he was having success overall in either area. But if I look at team stats for this team for this week, here we are going into Sunday. We got 6 home runs, 30 RBIs, 29 runs, 3 steals. No progress over there. ERA is 3.33, 1.20. Saves 3 for the week's not bad. 2 wins is kind of disappointing, but I'm doing okay in wins. I'm not sure who was pitching today. Trying to think of the other. Let's see if I back up one more period just to see. Last week, 5 home runs for the week. The runs, 39, and RBIs are okay. 5 steals, not enough, but I had no saves last week. ERA was great. And I just have Ruiz on my bench, maybe as a base starter. I'm waiting, hoping maybe in September I could play him and run something down if he got a bump in stats. So the week before was All-Star week, and it was a short week. So anyway, really struggling for the offense. Need the players to hit. I need to solve a few injuries. Wyatt Langford's underachieved. Riley Green's been kind of quiet of late. Christian Yelich is fine. So, but there's enough pieces of the offense to be at least competitive, and we'll see what happens there. So, let's see. Let's go to set lineup and just leave it at that. So I'm going to have to find somebody at third base, most likely in outfield. But so we're going to go over to here and look at free agent catchers. And I'll sort with the player stats under stats, player stats, and I'll switch it to what's going on in week 19. And that gives me the number of at-bats for all the catchers over this week, and to see what they're doing. So you're looking for somebody that's getting more playing time that's under-owned. So Edgar Quero has played a little bit better over the past week. He was 5 for 17 with a home run, 3 RBIs. He was a player that was pretty productive last year in the minors. I think he had 16 home runs, 70 RBIs over around 400 bats, and I think he's a pretty good player. Really didn't show his power for the first part. You can see a lot of stats over here at the beginning of the year from week 4 to week 14, nothing, but he's hit a home run every other week over the last 3 weeks, even with not full-time playing time. So he's kind of settling into where he might give you a home run, 2 runs, 2 RBIs for the week, and maybe one of those 2 could play with Teals on the same team. So I like the direction he's going, and he will help in batting average. I have Baldwin of the Braves on this roster. I don't think he would be better than him, and Baldwin does some stuff, even though he's quiet here or there. And I'm sticking I still have Francisco Alvarez, and he's kind of crushed my dreams this summer at the catcher position. So, but that's the first option, Guerrero, and he's probably a guy that's, probably in that low range, under $20, because he's kind of splitting, unless he had a big day today and had a couple of home runs. Kyle Higgy. I'm going to butcher this name, Kyle Gasha, whatever his name is, whatever. Butchering it and making it worse. But he has been really, really a player that I talked about probably well in advance of him doing something. And he was kind of splitting. He missed like 5 games last week, and he got a little nicked up and didn't do anything. But you can see, if you go back the last 5 weeks, he's got he now has 6 home runs. He had 3 this week, and he had two respectable weeks in RBIs with 4, 5, and this week 5. So he's a player that's trending in the right direction. Last year he really came on. He had a hot run for the Yankees, I believe, and he ended up he had 17 home runs over 246 at bats. That's a pretty impressive number there. And now he's only got 7 home runs over 197. If he could get 400 bats, he'd be like a 15, 55, 60 player, and with more potential, but he doesn't get it. But so he's trending in the right direction, and I think he does offer power. And again, sorry for butchering his name, but I'm just unfortunately I listen to sports on mute, and I read them, don't think the name, just see the name, and it's kind of a flaw in my game, but there's only so much time in the day, and I just think it's more efficient for me to watch the games on mute and watch something else and work at the same time. So, but other the player that Fry is, he's done a little bit better lately for Cleveland, but he's not getting enough playing time. But he's got a home run 4 of the last 5 weeks, but a lot of those solos and nothing, no other production. Had 6 RBIs 3 weeks ago. The last 2 weeks he's had 6 and 5 at bats, not that great, but if he could get more playing time, he could be a little sneaky. Like I said, he's hitting a few more home runs. He's more of a guy that you get hurt at catcher. You stick him in, see what happens. Pittsburgh's catcher's really not doing much, and there's just not, nothing really that stands out. But the Baltimore catcher, Samuel Bassa Sally or whatever, Solly, he's done pretty well in the minors, but he's 2% owned, but he's probably not a free agent most playing leagues, but he's a guy that's probably potential out if he gets called up at some point over the next 8 weeks of the season. I'm going to shift over to first base, and Warming Barnabel is done pretty good for Colorado, especially over the last week. He's 12 for 22, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. And if we look at what he's done since he's had an opportunity last week, he had a home run and done pretty well. But overall, his profile actually, I'm trying to switch back to that. So he's actually listed him as a shortstop. So he's playing first base, and he's got a first base qualification, but on his profile at the NFBC it says shortstop. But when you look at his minor league resume, it just really kind of doesn't really stand out like where you think this guy would be impactful. But, when you're looking for people moving up in the lineup and doing stuff, he does fit the profile. And I'm going to bring up his minor league stats right here on RotoWire, which I've used a lot. So, this year he's had 8 home runs, 45 RBIs, 5 steals, over 282 at bats. So he's really only like a 15 hitter that would hit about 15 home runs. Last year he had 9 over 479 bats, hit 263, and he's really a couple of years at Double-A. So he's kind of, in a way, has outperformed his minor league profile. And I know he played better this year, and he had a hot week. He's got technically, he's got a 7-game hitting streak, not counting today, and he's been pretty impressive. And but I can't imagine him costing a ton of free agent dollars in the high stakes market. Especially in the shallow leagues, 12-teamers, there'll be a couple dollars. But if he's playing at home, I think he would have a little more value, even though he's done some of this stuff on the road as well. He's played 4 games on the road, 5 games on the road, and 2 games against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's bullpen, and even they gave up 17 runs in one of those games. So I think that he will be attractive based on what he did in the last week or so. But at this point, names don't win championships, stats do, and he is getting playing time. And he is playing well, so you can put him in there, pick him up, see what happens, and maybe you can help him bat and average, chip in some counting stats, and move forward. But based on playing time, he's like about the 6th first baseman as far as at bats going into Sunday, which is a lot of times you're looking for the most at bats. But I know that a friend of mine on the West Coast wants the most at bats, and everybody you get the most at bats. But when you're getting a lot of walks on your team, you're not going to rank as high and at bats, so you have to kind of bridge the two, and some of that doesn't translate as well to visualize in the NFBC, because when they give the season stats for the overall, they show the at bats, but they don't list the strikeouts and walks for hitters, I believe. So I'm kind of, and that's kind of an issue for me on that side. We're going to go down. Otto Kemp playing, that's third base. We'll talk about him a little later. Dubon's going to be out of playing time. Kobe Mayo, at the trade deadline, Baltimore had multiple positions that players got a little more playing time. And last week, he looked a little bit better. He had 2 home runs over like a 4-game stretch, 5 RBIs. He was trending in the right direction, a few more walks, and he looked like he was going to be a helpful player. Now, they make a couple trades. They got a doubleheader, plays 1 game, gets 6 at-bats, nothing, 2 strikeouts, 2 more games. After it looks like he sat out a couple games, he's still over 6. So he doesn't have a hit in his last 12 at bats, 6 strikeouts, but he has the potential of the guy to kind of pop. And I think that they will play him, but also Ryan Mountcastle is getting closer to returning for Baltimore, and he could get in the way unless one of them two flips over to DH. Let me see who they're wheeling out at third base right now. So Westberg's going to slide over there. Jackson Holiday, Gunnar Henderson's pretty tight up in the middle there. So the DH is really kind of an important position if Mayo and Mountcastle are going to get playing time. In addition, they did call up Jeremiah Jackson, who was on a really hot run in the minors, considering his profile. But I'll talk about him when I get the shortstop. But let's go down to Mountcastle. He didn't play yesterday, and I'm not sure about today, but he had a 6-game hitting streak at AAA with 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. So he's a viable ad, even though he was disgustingly bad in the counting categories over his first 187 at-bats. He had 19 runs, 2 home runs, 15 RBIs, 1 steals, and everybody, they moved the fences in this year in Baltimore, and then based on last year, he looked like he was the guy that was going to be take advantage of the change in dimensions in the park because of lost home runs. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and but he's been better at AAA over his last 6 games, 5 for 16. 9 for 23 with 3 runs, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. And so I think that Mountcastle is a guy that you could stash if you have a weakness at corner, infield, first base, or even DH. But he should be in the player pool in a bunch of leagues, I would think. Let me just go to Baltimore just to talk about him for a second. So he's a free agent in 53% of leagues, so he's pretty available. It's getting kind of late where a lot of these teams don't have a lot of free agent dollars, and I'll just go to this team just to kind of give you a free agent. So this is that one main event that I'm talking about. So I have $63 left for 2 months. So I'm hoping to spend about 30 this month and 30 next month to see what happens. But it's plenty of moves as long as you don't go on the mat and spend $30 on somebody. I got 63 moves. I can bid a couple dollars a little higher. If you make 3 moves a week for 8 weeks, it's only 25. You have some movement. You're not going to win the better players or the hot players, but if you're ahead of the curve, you can pick up some players. But there's 4 people with less money, and for generally there's 3 other teams under 100, and even some of the teams that have more money, sometimes those teams are kind of they're going to overspend on one player because they're worried about some of the other teams that have a lot going on. Like if you got $400 left and you want to make sure you get somebody, he might only cost you $23, but he's the best player available, best pitcher or something. And these people might spend $150, and the runner-up bid might be $37, but they want to make sure they get the player and not take any chances. So let's go down to first base. Mayo, talked about him. There is an opportunity in Tampa with Aranda, got banged up a little bit, and I'll look that up in 1 second. Casey Schmidt, I'll talk about at third base. So, and I think there's a option at Miami. Like I said, there's a lot of player movement. Oh, actually, that's okay. So there's 3 players: Miami, and Arizona, and one other player. So I'm going to go to those 3 because they just, I've wrote about the players a little bit. I've been out of the box, and you try to, it's easy to catch up when you do the waiver wire and you got teams that are in the contention. But Tyler Locklear is a guy that got traded from Seattle. He's repeating this year. He's repeating AAA, I believe. Let's go up here. Did I already go? Oh, yeah. So he played a little bit. Last year he had a half season at AAA at 260, 8 home runs, 41 RBIs, 5 steals. Decent player. On pace for 100 runs that year, and looks like a 1680 guy, 10 steals. But he really popped this year at AAA at age 24. Hitting 316, 19 home runs, 82 RBIs, 17 steals, 70 runs. He looks like he's just, a 5 category player. I don't know where he get drafted in the 2nd round, so he wasn't a 1st round draft pick, which really isn't that important once they get it. But he really kind of put it together in July. I'm gonna get rid of that. So in July he had it's kind of at the bottom of the screen. I don't know if you can see it. It's really small. He had 35 at-bats 35 hits over 83 at-bats, had 422, 26 runs, 9 home runs, 34 RBIs, and he had 6 steals. And that's that could translate well to the starting lineup for Arizona and get middle of the order, I think he would really be helpful. But he's had 7 at bats in the majors since he got with Arizona. He's 0 for 7, and people will kind of dismiss that and not go for him. So I think that he's in the NL only league. I would have to definitely go for him. I think that he's definitely a viable option to somebody trying to fix their team, especially add a little bit of speed at first base. And if I had a lot of money out, I mean, I would pay, $10 to $20 for him, and if the back end of the player pool, I got $63, what am I going to spend $1 or $2 on this particular team? I have 2 first basemen, and so they're clogging up first and corner, and I have Turkelson, so I can't bid on him no matter what. But on another team, he is going to be a player that's going to be a player of interest, and probably I don't have enough money to overspend. But unless he has a big day today, I don't think that he is going to be really an expensive guy. But his stats say like he's likable, a very likable player in the fantasy market, but he still has to prove himself. And we've seen this year that multiple times that when players get called up, sometimes it's taking these guys like 80 to 100 bats to feel comfortable, which really doesn't help fantasy teams out of the gate. Troy Johnson for Miami, 28-year-old veteran. He looks like he's going to get a little more playing time. He sat out the last couple of days. He had 12 home runs, 30 steals at AAA this season, but he's played at AAA over the last 4 seasons. He's 28 years old, 12 home runs, 30. The steals look attractive, but unless he's hitting, he's not going to be in the lineup. But in the minor leagues, he was doing a little bit better over the last couple of weeks. Let's go back, say the last before the All-Star break. He 10 for 40, hit 250, about the same. He had 2 home runs, 2 RBIs. So nothing really other than 5 steals. So the Miami, he could be a dollar flyer if you could see what happens. And they also had the other player in the minors there. I don't know if they'll ever call him on. I thought he might get traded at the deadline. I guess he's May 20th. Yeah, he's Division De Los Santos. He's a guy that hit 40 home runs last year between like a couple of levels of over 3 levels of 2 levels. He got traded at some point here, so he had 40 home runs and a bunch of RBIs, and he just really hasn't hit his stride as well this year. He's been a little bit better over. Let's go to just in July. He's 19 for 85, hitting 224, but he does 3 home runs, 16 RBIs. So he's not going to get called up, and then it's not somebody that's going to stand out. And let me go the other option, first base, just because I skipped over that a little bit. There's somebody else here. Oh, I wanted to check Tampa after they had the injury to Aranda and what they're going to do there, and see where they're going to slide over there. So Brandon Lowe could slide over there. They could slide Diaz potentially there. So it would probably be more of a DH spot. And I know DeLuca came back to play center field a little bit. I think he had a decent game the other day. So there's nothing really that stands out anyways other than a guy that's on a roster. Let's see, Tristan Garrett Gray. It's just to see what he was, 270 at AAA this year, 29 years old, 9 home runs, 44 RBIs. Nothing really. I wouldn't consider him a name guy that I would be interested in, at least in a deep format. And so I could be missing a name, like I said. By the time I get back out of the house for a few hours on Sunday, and even knowing some like a Jake Berger, how close he is. I know Baum took. I have him on a few teams. Had some batting practice or something, or started doing something the other day. I don't know how close he is, but at least he potentially could help in another week or so after being on a DL. But that's all I think at first base. Second base, same thing. There's sorted by the at bats and the percentage owned. Adam Frazier's getting a little more playing time for Kansas City, not owned on any roster, but he's kind of a low profile player that's been around for a long time. He played better this week and had a home run, 4 runs, 3 RBIs, but I don't view him as potentially as a guy that I could depend on to go after. I think that the player that Lee Brooks is the one he's a 53% owned, so he's a free agent, 47% of leagues. He had a really good week this week. He had a 2 home run game. earlier this week, but he's got 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, 3 runs. But he's, with Correa getting traded and stuff like that, him qualified as second base, does give him a little bump in value. And he is a guy that, it kind of has like a 20-80 profile in the minors and could potentially help. And I think he is kind of coming into his own, but he's still a guy that's going to cost low dollars. So that's where we're at with him. I'm getting text at the same time about something outside of fantasy baseball, and I apologize. And I should, probably not as bad as me butchering the names. So we're going to go down. Morel, nothing. At bats. Durban, Martinez. Yeah, so there's really the other guy for, like, I've talked about Brooks from the White Sox. So they put Vargas on the DL, and so he called it Baldwin Brooks is a guy. If I have Miguel Vargas on the DL, even the Chase Madroth guy, he was 88%, but Brooks Baldwin is a guy I really like, and I think he has potential to do something. He is going to be he's a free agent, 81% of the league. So if I have Vargas, I am going to go to him as my cover. He had a really hot run a little while ago in the minors. He got banged up, got called up, and hit a home run or something a couple of weeks ago. But he really hasn't shown enough where people are going to fight for him. At least on the waiver wire this week, he's only got 2 at bats. Last week he had 2 for 15, 1 home run, 4 RBIs. But I'm going to show you what he did in the minors on that stretch, because I want to just kind of, he looks like he has an opportunity. They have 2 guys banged up. Vargas is going to be out, and I think that he's going to be the guy that's going to get some more playing time. And I think that Meade is going to get traded from Tampa Bay. He has some potential, and he's going to move up there. So Baldwin, he qualifies at outfield, second base, and shortstop. But in the minors, before all this stuff was going on, he had this run rate on, I'll just go back, over 13 games, 20 for 50, 13 runs, 6 home runs, 9 RBIs, 3 steals, hit 400, and he had more to go with it. He did really well in the minors this year, so he kind of hasn't hit his stride. He had 12 home runs over 117 at bats, and this is probably rinse and repeat, but I just like his profile, and I think that he has a lot of potential. And like I said, he would be the guy that I would gravitate for if I have Vargas to cover him. And a lot of times when you have a guy who gets hurt, the guy that's taking his playing time, especially at the lower levels, they kind of do something. And the other player is Meade, who got traded from Tampa. I think he should get he had some talent. He just really hasn't hit in the majors. He started a couple of years ago in 2024. At AAA, he had 13 home runs, 11 stolen bases, and 41 RBIs over 364 at bats, and hit 288. I think that he has a decent profile, that he could be better, and he just needs somebody to kind of commit to him in the major league level. But overall, he's had 3 chances with Tampa, and he just really hasn't emerged. But for $1 at the back end of your roster, like me, I have like Jung at third base and something like that. I think he qualifies at second and third base. So I think that he is viable, and I'm just going to confirm that. So he's a player of that's, you put him in for $1, see what happens. They have some injuries, and I'm looking at Tampa Bay when he got traded to Chicago. That's not too good. So let's go second base. Yeah, Meade's first base and second base. So he could have a little overlap at first base if he really got stuck, and at the back end of the player pool. Let's see, Romy Gonzalez has done pretty good. Let's see, got to go back to week 19 splits just for the playing time. Sorry, backing up here. So but I'm on the second. Am I on the second page? I'm looking at the free agents of the league, so I'm screwing myself up and you. Sorry about that. The free agents would be a little different than who is available for player stats overall. Let's see. Cole Young is a guy for Seattle. Had a little home run, had shown a little more power lately. I do like that the Mariners added 2 bats at the trade deadline. He's at the back of the lineup. He hasn't attempted to steal all year, but he does have a potential to steal maybe 20 bases. And he, like I said, he's hit 2 home runs 4 weeks ago, hit 1 this week. So 2 out of the last 4 weeks he was playable. The week 17 was the All-Star week. He was 2 for 6. Really didn't have much in that week, but the following week did nothing. But I think just the Seattle's lineup being a little bit better, and if I needed somebody that maybe could hit a home run and steal some bases, like he could be a sneaky player for $1 at the back end of your roster, and you really have to have injuries to be shopping at this level. But he is somebody that I would kind of pay attention to. Nolan Gorman returned from the DL from his back issue. Let's see. So he played the last 2 games. He does have power. Most of the people in the high stakes market would know him. You're starting to kind of hit his stride a couple of weeks ago, where he started to get some playing time. He had 3 home runs one week, 1 the next, 1 the following week. But over the 3-week period, he had 11 runs, 5 home runs, and 11 RBIs. So pretty productive there. He's a swing and miss guy, going to hurt a little bit in batting average. But if you're looking for power and you got a little coverage in batting average, I think he's viable. Third base. They're down a third baseman, and he can potentially play second base. But he's he's kind of the power out there. Let's see here. Yeah. So there's just like I said, they sent the Bryce Matthews down after some trade. So yeah, but Baldwin is a guy, like I said, for Vargas. So we're gonna go over to shortstop. Let's see here. Trying to get a mental picture of this. And Tyler Walls, nothing. I guess Brian Raccio played a little better recently, but he's at the back of the lineup. So the last 3 weeks, short week. Actually, you can go back last 4 weeks. He got 1 home run. His RBIs have been really, really good for 4 weeks in a row. 4-3, 4-4 runs, 2-2, 2-3. Probably can get away with him in a deep league. He has 1 home run. He gets sent to the minors from week 7 to week 15, and he was quiet the first week back. But overall, he's been better. Down the lineup guy, doesn't offer a lot of speed. But if you need somebody for a week, he's kind of a bridge player, no-name player. See what happens if he gives you some stuff. But it's good to see his RBIs and stuff doing something, and potentially if he could move up in the batting order, that would be tremendous. You can't Dubon, nothing. We mentioned him because of the trades. Javier Baez. Jordan Lawler is a player that's probably still a free agent, and I checked Twitter the other day, and he was starting to do some stuff, but I haven't seen any updates of, I think he got hit by a pitch or something like that. But let me just see if there's any. Yeah, they're still sitting on that. I'll go to Twitter because it might be a better update. I don't know, some of the fantasy sites, it's easy to lose track of some of the players, when they're having injuries. And Lawler is a guy that's kind of impactful, but if you're going to add him to your roster, he's somebody that's not going to help you for, I would imagine, a couple weeks, and he could potentially qualify at third base, after the trade for Eugenio Suarez. But will he be impactful, and can he finally hit his stride in the majors? But late in the season, let me just put injury. Just look at this. Let's see if I can get a better update on this thing. He's rehabbing from his injury, so that was the 31st. So he got hit by a pitch. And I mentioned that earlier. And let me just look on the latest and see if there's something else that somebody slipped in there. Yeah, so there's nothing since the 31st, but he did look like he was taking a bat down somewhere, but he did get hit with a pitch. So at least he's upright and showing something, and maybe go on a rehab assignment. And like I said, hopefully he can, by the middle of August, maybe give you 6 weeks. He could steal some bases. And depending on your structure, he potentially could help a team. And he does have the talent to be an impact player if he performs up to expectations and he stays healthy, obviously. But let's see, Garcia, Young, where we at right now? So we're at shortstop. So we talked about Young, some of these other players, and I'm trying to think. There's basically a lot of low percentage owned guys. The other guy, the player, is for the Dodgers. He got called up, and I think he's playing third base, and I'm not sure when. Alex Freeland, and I haven't really followed him close, but he's 4 for 9 since he's been called up with no runs, 1 RBI, and I need to check on him because I know that in an NL only league or the Dodgers, could give him playing time because Edmonds a little banged up. They lost Kim, Rojas isn't that great a player. Muncy could be back. So Freeland is a guy who was drafted in the third round in 2022. He hit 253 this year at AAA, which was his second season. Well, the first season had 144 at bats. So he's really had, over the last two seasons, almost a full year of at bats. He's had 512 at bats between the two seasons, 92 runs, 17 home runs, 89 RBIs, 19 steals. Took a ton of walks, 75, 94 over the two seasons. Struck out 144 teams. So he is a player that has a lot of potential, but he will hit down a lineup. So, but maybe for $1 and based on playing time and where he is in the order, he is a player that probably should know about him. And but there's really nothing really stands out. And like I said, it could be missing somebody. But so let's see. Let's go back over here. We'll go to, let's make one more trip through this and just make sure I didn't miss somebody. We're at 36 minutes. I don't want to waste your life because I guess this is getting late, a lot later on Sunday. I like last week that I did it before, but had a wedding for a family member on Saturday, out of the house, and just stuff going on. My son from California is in town, and it's just kind of too many outside forces pulling at me to get this stuff done. All right, so that without potentially could have missed somebody, and apologize for that. So we'll shift over to third base and skim through this. There was a couple of positions, third base options that seemed like they changed a little bit. Trade deadline, not going to stand out in my head right now because of, like I said, I'm not out of it. So Kemp's been okay for Philadelphia, but he's more of a cover. Like I had Alec Baum, so I picked him up just in case, but I don't think he's playing well to keep long term, and he's potentially out of it. So Brian Hayes is a free agent, 30% of leagues, and he hit in the bottom of the lineup for Cincinnati after the trade. Can give some steals. You'd like to see him play a little bit better ballpark, but in better offense. But he's going to cost $1 if he's even in the leagues that he's in. Playing time. Mayo talked about him. Whatever he earlier at first base, he's somebody that could be a potential player. Casey Schmidt just really hasn't fired. Flores got banged up on. I think I don't know. He's got some sort of injury, but we saw week 13 that Schmidt had 10 hits over 21 at bats for San Francisco. Seemed like he was trending, and that was coming off a 3 home run, 11 RBI week. But when you chase these hot weeks just like that, you miss on those weeks, and you chase them for the next 2 or 3 weeks, he really just gave you nothing over the last 5 weeks. And I know he spent some time on the injured list over that stretch, but he only has 5 runs, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, and just really not the same player. So it's just crazy to see that these guys, sometimes they give 1/10 of their season stats or some ratio close to that over a 1 or 2 week period, and then they kind of disappear. Even star players over 162 games or 6 months, they get a lot of their stats maybe in 2.5 months, and then the other ones can be quiet. So somebody can look really pathetic for a long time, and then they kind of hit their stride and make up for lost ground. And you just wish these guys would do what you expect on the go. Michael Andujar has got a trade for Cincinnati. He's got a little more playing time. Had a couple home runs this week. Last week he had a home run. He's a guy that earlier in his career for the Yankees, he looked like he was going to hit for a lot of home runs. He hit for a decent average. Really kind of didn't do it last year, and he spent a lot of time on the injured list this year. But last year with the Athletics, he had 302 at bats, only had 4 home runs, and this year he's got 6 home runs over 218 at bats with not impactful runs, 22 or RBIs. Doesn't really offer too many steals, but he is playing a little bit better. So you could probably take a shot, and at the very least, if he could sneak in a home run a week, that would be very good. And you probably can trust him to at least help you in batting average. Let's see, third base. Just they did call up Jared Triolodo. Sorry, another butcher name. So, but he was a guy that just really didn't do much for Pittsburgh last year. So And Oswald Peraza got traded to the Angels over the week at the trade deadline. Has some speed, kind of underperformed. Hasn't hit at the in the major. I mean, hasn't hit in the majors in like not only in batting average but as being a helpful fantasy player. So nothing much there at third base. Outfield. And let's see, anybody. Oh, I know there's one outfielder. So Nathan Lukes has been pretty good over the last couple of weeks. George Springer, Toronto's roster changed a little bit at DH. They added a couple players and stuff like that. But Lukes, because George Springer got put on the DL, he probably could maintain some part of his at bats. But over the last 5 weeks, he's got last 4 weeks he's got 5 home runs, 9 RBIs, and 9 runs and 14 RBIs, and even the 2 weeks before that he had 3 RBIs. So he's a player that could be helpful, and he's playing a little bit better. Might not play every day. He might sit against a lefty, but I think that with Springer out, he does get a little reprieve where his at bats could be there. Man, Doyle was a popular player last year, but he's kind of underachieved. But he is a free agent in a couple leagues, and he looks like he's picking up the pace a little. Dominic Canzoni's 33%. 30% owned. Really hasn't hit a home run in 4 scoring periods after hitting 6 home runs over the previous 4. Batting average was all right in 3 of the 4 weeks. He played poorly in week 18. He was 2 for 18 with 3 RBIs. But he's a guy that's, I think that he would be helpful batting average, and he does have power. And if he's in a free agent pool, he probably costs next to nothing. And I think that he would be a guy that would probably could help a few weeks down the stretch here. And I think that, like I mentioned with Young, the shortstop or second baseman, that he will, the lineup being better probably helps him too. Johnny DeLuca is, 5 for 16 since coming off the DL. He looked like he had the skill set of being like a 2020 player coming into the year. He thought he had a decent path to playing time center field for Tampa Bay. Simpson being there a little nicked up is somewhat a factor, and he missed, from week 2 to week 18. Played all right, this week, and can offer some steals. He has 5 on the year. So I think if you're looking for speed, you could give him, he would be a flyer. But he's not a lock to be like in the lineup every day, and his ceiling could be kind of limited. Perkins got called up for Milwaukee. Frelick got a little nicked up, and they lost Cherio. He's a player that surprised last year. I'm not really a fan of him, and I know he did all right, earlier this game, and I'll show what he did earlier this week in a game. But last year he had 108 strikeouts and 383 at bats, struck out about 25% of the time. He had 23 steals, 6 home runs, and does some stuff. And this week, he had games. So last 3 games, he's 6 for 14 with 4 runs, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. But overall, I don't think I think Collins is a better player. He should be more rewarded there. This guy's a switch hitter, and I think he's $1 or $2. And I don't really like, I guess I use that term fantasy snob, and he's a guy that I wouldn't gravitate because I don't think his talent rewards his potential. Grishek is a guy that can hit a home run. He's 83% owned. Get chased at Kansas City. Let's see what his games. So he's the last. He started. He wasn't in the lineup on Saturday, and he started the game before, and then he was off. So it's been up and down, and I think that trade was probably in between there. But he's a guy that could potentially be better and hit a home run. It's just not a lot there. I do think for the player that's the most attractive to me, Alec Thomas is a 67% free agent, kind of a guy that had a higher exit velocity than his launch angle dictates. But he's done a little better, and I'm pretty sure he hit another maybe he hit a home run yesterday. But, he really kind of struggled for the home runs. But over the last 2, 4, 6, 8, over the last 9 weeks, he's got 6 home runs, and he's shown a little bit more progression. He hasn't stolen the bases, and his batting average hasn't got to where it should be, because he was a guy with his minor league profile. You thought he would hit kind of like be a 300 hitter, but strikeouts a little bit higher than expected. He's hitting 250 now, doesn't run enough, but he is trending in the right direction. They did make some trades, and that could potentially help him with a little more at bats, but he ultimately has to, play better to stay in the lineup more. But as somebody that's kind of playing better, he falls into that category. The Alan Rodin guy got traded from Toronto to Minnesota, 1 for 10 over the last week, but they did have him. He had 6 strikeouts, but over that 10 at bats, so that doesn't look. But he's a guy that in the minors looked like he could hit 300, 25 years old, like an older prospect, and just hasn't got there. But if they're going to give him top of the order at bats, he potentially could surprise, but a low ceiling and power. But somebody you have to pay attention to because of the, I've been using him when I'm writing a couple times, the lineup chasers, and he falls into that category because he's moving, got a better opportunity. And the other player that, let me see for the guy from Minnesota, he qualifies at second base as well. Let's see, he's probably been picked up in a few leagues. Yeah, he's not showing in it. Maybe he's only qualifies at second. Sorry. No. Oh, maybe he's only utility. I hate it when they do that. When the utility player. Yeah. So it's Luke Kishel. He's getting closer to the majors and really had that fracture earlier in the year. I think he stole a base in like five consecutive games or did something. But he started with it. So he's getting closer to the majors, and but he's utility only. And I think let me just go back to him. Let's just see what his eligibility is. He's played 5 games at DH and 2 at second, but he's going to qualify at second base most likely when he gets called up, or see him playing time in the outfield. But he's a guy to keep an eye on. Sometimes these just these names just kind of pop in my head that you following them from a distance but not seeing anything. So in the outfield, the player that's the most interesting to me that most people won't be on is Luis Matos from Luis Matos from San Francisco. He's been in the majors for a couple of seasons. Really just hasn't hit. He's got, I guess I'll just go to the other thing. I can sort the data a little bit better over here. San Francisco, 47 minutes. So, let me just look at McRae. So they got him as a guy that they called up. So 14 home runs, 26 steals, hit 260, a little more power. Got called up last year, 5. So, he's a guy that could potentially get some at-bats. But I'm going to talk about, that's somebody could be in competition for playing time in San Francisco. But anyways, back to my original thought process here is that since being in the majors, the San Francisco has given him 492 at bats. He only has 51 runs, 12 home runs, 52 RBIs. He's got 5 steals, but he doesn't strike out a lot. Walk rate's a little below where you want. It's closer to the league average, but it's not like he's an asset taking walks. But at the same time, if you look what he's done, say from 2023 to 2025 at AAA, it paints a lot better profile. He had 281 over 551 at bats, 77 runs, 26 home runs, 88 RBIs, and 19 steals. So it's kind of screams like a balanced player. His strikeout rate is like between 12 and 14%. I don't have the number, and I'm not going to sort on it that quick. But I think that he showed last year he had a little mini hot streak and flashed for San Francisco. He had, but he is a player that could surprise, and he could help in 5 categories. But I don't set the lineup card for San Francisco. And, since the trade, he was 1 for 3, and he was 0 for 1. So he probably sat in one game for whatever reason. But he is going to have to hit his way into more playing time, but he's going to cost $1. And I just think that he has more talent, and he potentially could help in a few weeks. And I probably will add him this week if I can. Even if I'm telling somebody that's in my league, they probably won't pick him up because they won't believe me. And but sometimes I'm to a fault that I stick to my guns, and it could be a little. And as far as Grant, this week he's 2 for 6 with a run, 3 strikeouts, so he's viable. as well. And so let me see, anybody else in outfield that I missed. I'm sure I missed a lot of people. I guess if Collins is out there, I can't imagine him being in that many leagues. Yeah, Collins is 100% owned for the Brewers. Let's see, and there is a player for Baltimore that didn't get called up, Beavers. I think he's in name to follow. At play center field, and Atlanta probably has some opportunities in outfield, but really just nobody else that I can. I guess the Hassel guy from Robert Hassel got called up for Washington after getting sent down, and he played all right earlier in the year. He was 9 for 27 at a home run, 5 RBIs. He got called up this week. He's 3 for 5, 1 home run, 4 RBIs. It was weird because he was like, he had got, he went on the injured list or something like that, was out for a long time. And then there was a lot of people that kind of held on to him for a long time when I do the waiver thing for the NFBC. And he eventually got cut. And I was like, did the people cutting them because they're not managing their teams or they have faith in them coming back and doing something? But I don't think even though he's hit a few home runs, he doesn't profile from what I remember. And that's, as a high profile guy for power. So earlier this season at AAA, 310, he had 10 home runs over 294 at bats, 45 runs, 49 RBIs, and 16 steals. So kind of a balanced profile. Done a little bit, worse in the majors overall. He's got 22 strikeouts, so 1 walk. He's got 2 home runs, but he does have some talent, kind of be a balanced player, and I think that he will be a player of interest as well. So, all right, I'm gonna skip to the starting pitching and probably bang out of this look of it because it's a little bit harder to, translate. Taj Bradley, the guy that got traded from Tampa Bay to Minnesota, got dropped in a few leagues last week after getting he's 40% owned. He should get a pretty good opportunity for the Twins, but I'm not 100% sure that will happen this week. So let me go over here and go to starting pitcher rotations. And let's go with August 4th. So on Arizona, not really much change. Descalfani got it moved into the starting rotation, struggled last week. Gallen pitched a little bit better. He does face Colorado next week. He could be a helpful a player for some fantasy teams, based on his matchup next week. He follows that up with Texas. Not sure what his ownership is in the free agent market. I thought Perkins would get chance to close for the A's, but they decided to move him in the starting rotation, which is going to take him a couple of games to get stretched out, where he is going to be viable. Let's see where it is. So Perkins he's 21% free agent. His games, the last one, he's pitched 3-2-2-2. So even if he starts this week, it's going to take a couple starts, but he does have double starts this week against Arizona at home and at Baltimore. So, but he's a 21% owned. He should be picked up. Wentz is a guy that seems like he's trending a little bit better for Atlanta. Did well last game. I think he pitched like 7 2/3 shutout innings, a few strikeouts. Facing the Brewers, not ideal next week, but he's pitching at home. But if you need strikeouts or you need somebody to fill in, he's viable. Next starts on the road against the Mets. It's probably not a great matchup as well. It looks like Povich for Baltimore's pitched better, and I think he had a hip issue in the minors. Draws Philadelphia on Tuesday. It looked like he was going to have double starts, but it looked like they got Young pitching on Monday now. So the following week he could face the A's at home and then at Houston. But he's a guy who has strikeout ability and some upside. He did pitch poorly in his last start in the minors, but he is a guy that can potentially be a lot better with more experience in the majors, but he will kind of be up and down. Mays going to move into the starting rotation. I already talked about Harrison a little bit. Bueller's the guy that eventually could be out of a job, but like I said, in Mays innings, who knows what's going to happen with him. I do need to. I guess Hunter Green's getting closer. I'm not even going to go there because he's not a free agent. They have him listed as a starter next Sunday at RotoWire. I'm not 100% sure that's going to happen that day. Ideally, I don't like when they come back on a Sunday. I would like them to pitch the following Monday and potentially get 2 starts out of them and be stretched out a little bit longer. But I do not control the outcome of the game. Colorado, I don't care. I've been skipping the Cubs for the most part. I know Savali pitched pretty good, I believe, today, and I guess he could be viable. And Burke's been pretty good overall, and he has double starts, and I don't know what his ownership. Mai's kind of struggling. Morton gets a chance. Traded from Baltimore, facing Philadelphia, and the Angels. He tends to be up and down a little bit, but giving up home runs. But overall, he's been better than expected. Better than expected considering how he started this season. Spencer Arangetti should return on Wednesday. Probably going to struggle with his command out of the gate a little bit, so it might take him a start or two. Miami is the Marlins are really kind of surprised, and they won a lot more games than expected. So that's matchup, in Miami should be favorable, and I'm not sure. Let me see where he. Let's see where he's. Well, I mean, I went 4 2/3 in the last game. He gave up 5 runs, so he should be able to go get into at least pitch 5 innings in that game. But like I said, might take him a game or two to find his rhythm. The following week he faces the Red Sox, so not ideal. Brady Falter got traded from Pittsburgh. He's kind of been a rotational starter, but against the Red Sox, not ideal. Bergert. He could trade from San Diego, pitch like 4 innings. He's an okay arm, but he's just not going to have enough length. But, Kansas City might be able to get something out of him. He could be a free agent. Really not much on the Angels. Kendricks pitched pretty good yesterday, and he continues to surprise, seeing how he throws a fastball about 83 miles an hour. Sheehan's going to get a start this week. Ohtani got a little banged up. There's somebody going to back up behind him. It's good when Ohtani's pitching because if he's the opener, if you got somebody come behind him, whoever come behind him might already have the lead because Ohtani most likely doesn't give up much damage and runs, and you have a chance to win the game. But Sheehan would be good, but he is going to get a start, and he has underperformed. So Milwaukee placed Zarowski or whatever on the injured list with some injury. So Logan Henderson gets called up for double starts next week, which will trigger the light bulb for everybody that has him. But unfortunately, the guy that's coming up now has not been the same pitcher since they sent him to the minors. Over the last 34.1 innings, gave up 31 runs, 6 home runs, 10 walks, 32 strikeouts with a 5.77 ERA. But his whip's 1.19, which is a lot better. So it's not as bad as it should, and it's most likely due to home runs. But he pitched good earlier in the year. Milwaukee's winning games, and he could be the best-looking kid on the market. And he has double starts this week, so he would be definitely a player of interest. You're out there, and you got to take a flyer on him. And I wonder at the same time what Meyer did for Myers. He got sent to the Milwaukee. He was pitching in bullpen. They gave him a couple shots. So I just want to look to see how if his start fell on the wrong day because of this injury, if he could potentially be a better option than Henderson because he could be a sneaky person to pick up this week. So they sent him back to the minors. Unfortunately, he did not pitch well. He was trending better before in July when he got called up, but he pitched 1 1/3 innings, gave up 6 runs, 5 hits, a home run, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. So they won't gravitate to him, but he was pitching better, in July and pretty much at the latter half of June, the second half of June. But for now, he's only a player to watch. He pitched pretty good last year. He had a 3.0 ERA, 1.117 whip, decent amount of strikeouts. So Tobias Myers is off the wish list as a follow for now. Like I said, gets kind of messy over here. They're, what Minnesota does, they acquired Mika Bell and Bradley at the trade deadline. So I think Bradley will definitely slide into the starting rotation. They have Arena listed as starter and somebody else, but Bradley should be back up. He pitched 7 no-hit shutout innings in his last game, and I would think that he would definitely be up as quick as possible for the Twins. And let me see. And pitching in that Central Division would be much better than pitching in the East, anyways. And let's see when his last start. So he pitched, 7 shutout innings on the 30th, and so he's, he potentially. I would think that he would be back up. He's just up and down, kind of inconsistent arm that should be a lot better. Unfortunately, I got sucked into him too many times on teams this year, and when you have that type of player on your roster, you have to just kind of ride him out. As far as the Mets, same group of starters. Holmes still fading a little bit. Manaea is trending in the right direction. Gill is going to be a guy. I don't know if he's in the player pool, but he's going to start on Monday, have double starts facing Miami, and then Houston. Was really good last year. Strode strikeability. Works, I think, up to 4 1/3 innings is the last one, maybe through 75 pitches. So he looks like he's ready to go, at least pitch 5 innings as long as his command is there. I am kind of interested in let's see, Johan Oviedo. Not really wasn't a fan of him last year or 2 years ago when he got called up. But he pitched pretty well. He had a 4.31 ERA, 1.37 WHIP. But he's been pretty good in the minors. His last 2 starts, gave up 10 runs. Pitched 10 innings, gave up 2 runs, and 6 base runners, 1 home run, 10 strikeouts, no walks. So I think that his minor league stats for the year have been pretty good. He's pitched over 4 levels, so he's only had 1 start at AAA, so it's kind of skewed a little bit. But he's overall 21 strikeouts in 17.1 innings. I know he's facing the majors, but he's a guy that most likely is not in the free agent pool because he hasn't called up. But if he pitches next week and he struggles, he potentially is a guy that could help the following week. He's not. He doesn't look like he's on a roster. But somebody I picked up on when I wrote something this week for Fantasy on SI. Definitely a player of interest here. We're at 102. We're not making that bad a time. Let's see. There, Pittsburgh. Sears. If he's in the free agent pool and he's pitching for San Diego, that's definitely an upgrade for me. He looked better in his last game for the Athletics. I'm just see if he's pitched yet for the Padres. Yeah. So 2 games ago he pitched good. He on the 23rd he had 1 run over 5 innings, no walks, 7 strikeouts. Faced Seattle at home. He gave up 2 runs and 8 base runners, 6 strikeouts. But only 2 runs. But in general, from the 28th over his last 6 start, he's been 3.60, 1.10, 30. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good player to pick up. And let me see what he is for free agent for because people were kind of floating him back and forth for double starters. So I guess he's only going to be a 7% owned free agent in these leagues. And Nestor Cortez is a guy who got traded as well. So I don't know if they'll probably activate him too, but he's still not, on a lot of teams. Let's see. He looks like they got Cortez ready to pitch at the end of next week. But Seattle, not much. San Francisco still kind of messy. Birdsong struggled in his first outing in the minors, and let's just double check and see what he did in his next one, just in case. Kind of weird, like Birdsong and Harrison were guys that he thought would be helpful this year, and they have not been helpful. And I thought San Francisco was going to make a push based on that. So his second start, he gave up 4 runs, 8 base runners over 4 1/3 with 2 home runs. So still not really a progression thing for them. And then they called up, let's see, Kiwi Tang from the minors. He had 86 strikeouts over 54 innings with 39 hits, 21 walks. So walks a few guys. 26 years old, kind of got banged around in his first outing. So if you're chasing strikeouts, he has potential, but he has shown a history of command issues in the minors. So, really it's just crazy how San Francisco just kind of went backed up. Verlander's been up and down. You got Webb. Webb's backed up a little bit. Ray's supposed to be a kind of frontline starter, but you put, Birdsong and Harrison, with their potential, they would have been a better starting rotation. McGreevy got a win, I believe yesterday, gave up 4 runs, but he's still on a lot. Most of these players are on rosters. Boyle, definitely a player that should be picked up in all formats, even though he didn't pitch well in his last game. I think he gave up 4 runs and faced the Yankees. Looked okay for a couple innings, and then he got banged around. Kelly got traded to Texas, and he looked okay. He didn't get the win. And Shane Beaver, not in the player pool, but it looks like he'll be at the end of next week. And he's a pitcher that's looked pretty good in the minors. And I believe that he is the one that will be the most attractive next week. I can't imagine Beaver being on any rosters, but it'd be a long hold for somebody to carry Shane Beaver. Let me just see pitchers. I'm gonna have to sort it by name. Yeah. Nice. So he's a 25% own in the main event, which is surprising. So people have held him that long. So I can't see in this league if he's. Actually, I can see in this league. Let me just see if this league. I can't imagine him being in a free agent pool, but if he was, he would. And you could get ahead of the curve for him. Yeah, no, he's not in the free agent pool. So some people picked him up and maybe drafted him and dropped him, and they got picked up. But next week he will, if he pitches on Sunday or something like that, he will be. Well, hopefully he pitches before Sunday because he won't be in the playing pool. But he will be one of the better, most attractive, free agent arms. Looked pretty good in so far in his rehab starts. And Lord's been okay. I think I mentioned him last week, and he's didn't end up getting double starts, but he has double starts this week. I think that he's viable. Faces Milwaukee, not ideal. He didn't. I think he only pitched 5 innings last week, and he had 1 strikeout. But he has. If he does get the double starts, he will face San Francisco at the back end of the week. He had 2 strikeouts, gave up 1 run, 1 hit. But if he gets the double starts, I think he's a sneaky player, and that he probably should be picked up. And that's about it. So it's just kind of kamikaze, kind of frustrating when your teams are kind of out of the race a little bit. And I don't feel as though like this waiver period I'm as crisp as I probably should be because of being out of the house. I did do some of the writing of the waiver wire, which is more geared to it's like looking at a 12-teamer. But I did do that already this week, and I didn't dig as deep. But at least I kind of had a mental picture of what I thought. The other, I think I skipped over. I mentioned that Jeremiah Johnson, and I'll just bring him up because I know I mentioned his name, and I don't want to like this guy mentioned this guy, and he didn't even talk about him. But Johnson is he was a guy that was in the minors, didn't look really much of a player at all for the Orioles, but he really came on this year, and they called him up, which. Like, how are they? Are they going to give him a chance to start if you call him up, or are you going to have him as a bench player? Is he going to be overmatched? There's a lot of questions with this guy, but they got him listed at RotoWire at the 5th in the depth chart. 25 years old. 25 years old, but he's hitting this year. So he started the year at AA. Really didn't show much. 254, 4 home runs, 19 RBIs, over 177 at bats. Really didn't whatever. This is not special. The only thing good improvement was he had 31 strikeouts and 9 walks. So his approach was a little bit better as far as not striking out. The year before he had 122 over 488, which is probably, about 25% or, less than 25%. But, when he got promoted to AAA, he really kind of hit his stride. 377, 162 at bats, 11 home runs, 22 RBIs, 9 steals. It's that's a pretty awesome profile. Only struck out 20 times. Over 177 plate appearances, and he's been really kind of on fire. And I'm backing up pretty far here. So since June 11th, which is 33 games, hit 400 over 135 at bats, 24 runs, 8 home runs, 18 RBIs, and he stole 9 bases. So, like I said, I mentioned him earlier, but if you got to playing time, you got to give him a shot. But like you said, he's a young player, and he needs to prove himself at the major league level. But I just was looking at something, and I noticed him, and I know I mentioned him earlier. So that's all I got today. Good luck on the waiver wire. It's getting to be football season, so I know that some of the minor league stuff that I've been writing about, I'm probably going to taper that out because maybe 1 or 2 more weeks, and then it's going to be all football, and we'll try to stay with the bullpen stuff for the rest of the year, shorten it up. But it's the change into the seasons, and I'm just hoping to salvage a little bit of funds. I'm third in my NL league if I could move up in there. So there's enough for me to turn a profitable season because, most of my focus is on the higher end events where, I have the most money in. But, you're going to have to cash. Ideally, I was hoping I could win a league or two to kind of turn a profit and help my chances of entering more football teams. But right now we're kind of trying to behave ourselves. So again, good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.